There is a tree that completely shatters the idea of hunger. One single tree that produces edible food 9 months out of every year. A tree whose nuts contain more protein than corn, more calcium than milk, more fiber than oats. A tree that grows without fertilizer, without irrigation, in soils so thin and rocky that nothing else will take root. For thousands of years, this tree sustained an entire civilization. It fed cities. It endured droughts that wiped out other crops. It allowed communities to thrive in regions that modern agriculture now calls marginal or uninhabitable. And then we cut it down. We labeled it inferior. We replaced it with crops that collapse if the rains arrive a week late. We cleared food forests and turned them into cattle pasture and parking lots. Modern agriculture didn't just overlook this tree, it erased it. But here's what they never told you. The tree is still here. And in a world staring down drought, famine, and climate collapse, it might be one of the only living systems capable of stabilizing food production without chemicals, patents, or corporate dependency. Today on Grown Folks Gardening, we're talking about the breadnut tree, Brosimum alicastrum, also called breadnut, maya nut, or ramon, a member of the mulberry and fig family, and the story of how we almost lost the most resilient food tree on Earth. Let's rewind 5,000 years, before the Aztecs, before the great pyramid complexes of Mesoamerica, before corn became the defining symbol of civilization. There were forests, but not wild forests, designed forests. Across southern Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize, archaeologists have been excavating Maya cities for decades. Temples, plazas, ball courts, monumental architecture. But in the last few decades, something unexpected showed up in the soil. Grinding stones, thousands of them, smooth from centuries of use. And when researchers tested the residue, it wasn't corn. They uncovered underground storage pits, chambers designed to preserve food through dry seasons and drought cycles. Inside those chambers, layers of dried shelled nuts, not acorns, not cacao, something else. They found evidence of large-scale flower production, structured groves planted intentionally around cities, managed orchards. We were taught that corn built Maya civilization, but the deeper researchers dug, the clearer the truth became. At sites like El Mirador and Tikal, mapping technology revealed vast tree orchards surrounding city centers. Carefully spaced, cultivated, pruned, harvested, this wasn't wild forest. It was agriculture, just not the kind we recognize today. At the center of it all was a tree whose name had nearly been forgotten. Ethnobotanists working in the Petén region of Guatemala began interviewing Maya elders. They walked through ruins overtaken by vines and discovered something extraordinary. The trees were still there, still standing, still fruiting. The same trees planted by their ancestors thousands of years ago. Beneath leaf litter, they found grinding stones. In carvings, they found depictions of seeds. In oral history passed through generations, they found knowledge that refused to disappear, and what they realized changed everything. The breadnut tree was not a backup food, it was the foundation. Picture it, a towering giant reaching 80 to 100 feet tall, a canopy so dense it creates its own cooler microclimate below. Roots capable of splitting limestone bedrock to access deep water reserves. It thrives in thin, nutrient-poor soil where modern crops fail. It survives prolonged drought. When fields of corn turn brittle and brown, this tree remains green. It bends in hurricanes and stands back up. And it produces food, not once per year, but 9 months out of 12. Each fruit contains a dense, chestnut-sized seed packed with nutrition. You can roast it, boil it, grind it into flour, make porridge, bake bread, press it into paste that stores for months without spoilage. Nutritionally, it's astonishing. Around 20% protein, high in fiber, rich in calcium, potassium, magnesium. It supports bone density, prevents malnutrition, sustains energy. A mature tree can produce thousands of seeds per year. One tree can supplement a family's diet for months. But the benefits don't stop at food. Its leaf litter enriches soil. Its roots prevent erosion. Its shade lowers ground temperatures by up to 20 degrees in extreme heat. Villages were built beneath these trees because life was cooler there. Breadnut forests were living food security systems. Archaeologists now believe the resilience of Maya civilization, its ability to support dense populations in difficult climates, wasn't just because of corn, it was because of breadnut. When drought cycles intensified, regions rich in breadnut trees survived longer. The pollen records and sediment layers tell the story clearly. When crops failed, people returned to the tree. So how did something so powerful disappear from mainstream knowledge? Colonization. When Spanish settlers arrived, they didn't recognize the value of breadnut. It wasn't wheat. It wasn't barley. It didn't fit European agriculture models. Forests were cleared to plant sugarcane, wheat, and cattle pasture. Breadnut groves were systematically cut down. Indigenous knowledge was dismissed as primitive. Within generations, the cultural memory faded. By the 1800s, most people no longer understood that their ancestors had cultivated entire food forests. By the 20th century, agricultural scientists barely mentioned it. It couldn't be grown in tidy rows. It didn't require fertilizer. It couldn't be sprayed and mechanized. So it was ignored. Government subsidized forest clearing, incentivized cattle ranching, promoted monoculture systems dependent on inputs. We replaced a self-sustaining 9-month food system with crops that fail when rainfall shifts slightly. And we called it progress. By the late 20th century, breadnut forests had been reduced to fragments. Processing knowledge survived only in remote villages and elder memory. We almost erased it completely. But in the 1990s, researchers studying malnutrition noticed something strange. In communities that still use breadnut, malnutrition rates were significantly lower. Universities began analyzing the tree. The nutritional data shocked them. The protein rivaled soy. The amino acid profile was nearly complete. The flour substituted well for wheat. Yield studies revealed something remarkable. One mature breadnut tree could produce as much edible food annually as a quarter-acre of wheat without irrigation, fertilizer, or chemical inputs. The Food and Agriculture Organization identified it as one of the most promising, underutilized climate-resilient crops. Because here's the reality. Climate patterns are shifting. Droughts are intensifying. Heat waves are lasting longer. Traditional crops are failing in regions where they once thrived. The breadnut tree was built for this. It evolved in a climate of extreme swings, monsoons followed by prolonged drought. It doesn't just tolerate instability, it expects it. Reforestation programs across Central America are now reintroducing breadnut into farms. Farmers report increased soil health, improved yields in surrounding crops, reduced erosion, cooler microclimates. It isn't just a food tree, it's regenerative agriculture embodied in one species. Now let's talk about what this really means. We live in an era of uncertainty. Food systems are fragile, supply chains are vulnerable, input costs are rising. The dominant solution offered by industrial agriculture is more control. more synthetic inputs, more engineered seeds, more dependence. But breadnut represents something different. It represents collaboration with ecosystems rather than domination. It fed empires for centuries, and we cut it down because it couldn't be patented, because it didn't require annual seed purchases, because it gave too much for free. So we forgot it, but the tree didn't disappear. It waited, in forest fragments, in backyard groves, in the hands of those who remembered. And now, as climate stress increases, it is still here, still growing, still fruiting, still capable of feeding. The future of food might not come from a laboratory. It might come from remembering an old relationship. This is the breadnut tree, the tree that destroys the idea of hunger, and we almost let it vanish. If this opened your eyes, make sure you hit like and subscribe to Grown Folks Gardening, because sometimes the future isn't something new, sometimes it's something ancient, growing quietly, waiting for us to see it again. I'll see you on the next one.